Hello and welcome to this recorded webinar of an introduction to the Data Security and Protection Toolkit. My name is Penny Town and I'm part of Kent County Council and we're supporting the Better Security, Better Care programme. So just to quickly run through the agenda today, we'll introduce the Better Security, Better Care programme. Then we'll look at what the Data Security and Protection Toolkit is and how it can help you. The initial steps in getting started with the toolkit, the training and support that we have available to help you, and the next steps from here. So Better Security, Better Care is a national programme funded by NHSX, and its overall aim is to help make sure adult social care providers have good data and cyber security in place. And it will do this by helping care providers to register on and complete the Data Security and Protection Toolkit, which demonstrates good practice in this area. So there's a lot of support to help you in doing this. We will be delivering workshops and other sessions, and as well as our local offer, there is support at a national level too. So for example, the Digital Social Care website, that's a really good source of information, support and guidance on information sharing and technology. And they've also got some helpful pre-recorded webinars about best practice as well. Okay, so the future is about sharing information securely, and increasingly that's through digital channels. The last few years have seen a rapid expansion in the use of digital technology in social care. So even before the pandemic, using things like rostering software or care management systems, and now even more so using mainstream technology such as smartphones and tablets for making those video calls like with GPs and family and friends. So the items you can see in the top row here. But there are other various NHS technologies that providers can use to share data if they can demonstrate good data and cybersecurity practice. So looking at the items along the bottom row, so things like NHS Mail or proxy access to NHS records. But whilst technology brings benefits for the sector and for the people the sector supports, it also presents risks in how information is managed and it's kept secured. And as we've seen, the pandemic has rapidly increased the use of digital technology within the sector, but there's no indication that this corresponds to an increase in data security awareness. And so that's where the Data Security and Protection Toolkit can help. So what is the Data Security and Protection Toolkit? So it's a free online self-assessment of your data security and protection policies, procedures and processes. And it's a bit like a questionnaire really. So it's not just about your technology, but it's about any information that you hold on any person. So whether that's staff or clients or visitors. And the toolkit enables you to demonstrate that you are compliant with data protection legislation, so GDPR, the Data Protection Act and the 10 Health and Social Care Data Standards. And the toolkit should be completed every year, but the majority of the work is actually just in the first year to set it up, because then your answers roll forward from one year to the next so that you can renew them. So you also don't have to complete it in one go, and you can make updates at any time throughout the year. And then finally, the questions are specific to social care providers, which means that it's also a really good source of advice about what you need to do in terms of data security. So it's also a best practice checklist. So why do you need to pay attention to this? Data protection is the fair and proper use of information about people. So data and cyber security is really important for the safe sharing of records, especially with the increased use of digital technology during the pandemic. So you need to know for yourself and to be able to demonstrate to others that you're following best practice and have good data and cybersecurity arrangements in place. It will help you to keep people's confidential information safe. So people have a right to privacy, and this will demonstrate to them that they can trust you to use their data fairly and responsibly. It will help protect your business from the risk of being fined for a data breach and from the disruption of a cyber attack. The toolkit will demonstrate compliance with legal and CQC requirements. It's also a contractual requirement if you receive NHS funding, and it will likely be a requirement from councils in the future too. And having good data in cybersecurity will allow you to access shared care records and other NHS systems. So whilst it's not necessarily at the moment compulsory to do the toolkit, it may become so in the future, so we'd really encourage you to take advantage of this free support whilst it's available. Okay, so as mentioned, the toolkit is a helpful guide as well as a self-assessment that's going to help you to evaluate and improve your data in cybersecurity. And so here we've got a bit of a summary of some of the benefits that we've just been through and why it's important to complete the toolkit. So particularly highlighting here that you can use it as evidence for some of the CQC's key lines of inquiry, demonstrating compliance with GDPR and the Data Protection Act, and the 10 data standards, which are increasingly being built into contracts with councils and the NHS. Also, as mentioned, it opens up opportunities for data sharing and access to the digital tools to do this. So, for instance, NHS Mail and specifically for Kent, proxy ordering for medicines. So we'll now move on to the toolkit itself, and there are 44 questions in total, which are split into the 4 groups that you can see here. So these are the topics that the toolkit covers. So staffing and roles, this includes questions around having a named person responsible for this area and that your induction and ongoing training covers data security and protection. Policies and procedures, this includes being registered with the Information Commissioner's Office, having data protection policies in place, and following good practice around retaining records and the destruction of them. Data security includes questions around having good physical security in place for paper records, plans for what to do in case of an emergency, so for example if you lose power or the internet, and managing data breach as well if something does happen. And lastly, IT systems and devices. So having basic IT good practice will cover most of these questions, for instance having antivirus software in place. Okay, so here's a screenshot just to show you what the toolkit looks like. So you can see all the questions are listed under the relevant categories we've just been through, and down the right hand side some of them are labelled as mandatory, which we'll come back to. And the questions that you've completed are then also marked as completed. And there's no specific order to completing the questions, so you can start anywhere and you can move back and forth between the questions, and the system will autosave at regular intervals. So to complete a question, you just click on the question, which is highlighted in blue, and you'll then see the detailed best practice advice and helpful guidance to answer it. And there are different question types, so you might be asked to upload a document or provide a date that something happened, or you might need to answer the question with some text or just a tick box to confirm that your organisation does something, so like providing induction training to all staff. So as an overview of the Data Security and Protection Toolkit journey then, the first stage is to register, and the aim is to get to standards met level. And you can go straight there by answering all 44 questions in the toolkit. Or you have the option to take a stepping stone and get to the level of approaching standards first. And to do this, you only need to answer the 27 mandatory questions, along with submitting an action plan stating what you're going to do to complete the remaining 17 questions. And the action plan is just a Word document template, which you can download from the toolkit. So just a couple of things to note here as well. After the end of June this year, providers will need to be at approaching standards level to sign up for a secure NHS email account if you don't already have one. And you'll need to be at standards met to gain access to other digital information sharing tools that we've just been through. Also, if you're familiar with the toolkit, you may know that there used to be an entry level, which would have appeared before approaching standards. So this level is now gone, but the work that you did previously for this has been transferred over, so you're about halfway to reaching approaching standards. So you might be thinking at this stage, where do you start with all this? And we're just going to look very briefly at the initial steps you need to take to register on the toolkit. So even if you don't complete it at the moment, it's a really good opportunity to gain full access to the guidance and best practice checklists and also any future updates. And it will help to improve your level of data and cybersecurity. So firstly, you need to decide who will be completing the toolkit. So who is responsible for data security and management in your organisation? And you can of course add other people as administrators later on to help complete it, but you need to decide who's going to lead on it. Then you should check if your organisation is already registered, and you can do that by going to the DSPT website, which there's a link on the screen, and click on Organisation Search at the top. From here, you'll then be able to search for your organisation and see if it's previously registered, and also whether it's completed the toolkit, or published as they call it, to what level they completed it, and when this was last done. If it's not there, you will need to register, and we'll come to that next. But if your organisation is already registered, then you need to find out who the toolkit administrator is, so that they can then add you to the toolkit so you can review the answers. And it might be that no one in your organisation knows who the administrator is, so maybe they've left, for example, in which case you can then contact the DSPT help desk to help gain access to it. Okay, so the registration process is simple in itself, as you can see here, just a few steps, but it just needs a bit of preparation to make sure you register with the correct details. And we'll just give you an overview of this now in case you want to go ahead and get started with the toolkit. But just to note, we'll also be covering the registration process in a separate webinar and going through it step by step as well. So as it says here, you'll go to the web address to register, and you'll need to use the email address of whoever's going to be the DSPT lead on this, and your ODS code, which stands for Organisation Data Service Code. Now you might have a couple of different codes, and the one you need to use will depend on your organisation setup. So if you're a small organisation with only one business and one site or location, then it's straightforward and you'll use your site code as you'll see on the next screen. But for larger organisations with multiple locations, it might be that the toolkit is registered at a headquarters level and can then be either completed once for all the different locations, or a separate toolkit might be needed to be completed for each location. To decide this then, you need to think about the questions here. So are the induction and training arrangements, the policies and procedures, the data security and data breach arrangements, and the IT arrangements, are they all the same for each location? If they are, then you can complete one toolkit for all locations as they would have the same responses. So just to give you an example then of some different organisational setups and sizes and the different codes. For every CQC registered organisation, there is a headquarters ODS code, which typically starts with an A, sometimes a C, or occasionally the number 8, plus individual site ODS codes, which there begins with a V. So for this first example, this is just a single organisation or a single care home. It's got a HQ code, which is A001, and the site code is V0001. So because it's a single location, it only needs to register and complete one toolkit, and they can do that using the V code. The second example, so this is a larger organisation. So this could be a small group of care homes or a care home agency with several locations or offices. There's a headquarters code, which begins with an A, and then there's a site code for each location, so that's the V code. If the organisation is one legal entity and if it has the same policies and procedures at each site, then only one toolkit needs to be completed for all locations. So in this case, registration should be done using the headquarters code, so the A code. In this last example, if your organisation is more complex, for example, it's made up of different legal entities and it has different head offices and different types of businesses going on under the parent company, and probably with different processes and procedures in place. In this case, you'll have more than one headquarters code and multiple site codes. So you may need to complete more than one toolkit entry. And we'd actually recommend very large or complex organisations such as this to discuss this with us or with the DSPT help desk on how to proceed. If you're not sure what your code is, this can be found on the ODS portal website. So just follow the link on screen and click on Organisation Search, where you can enter search criteria to find your code. And you just need to be careful to only use an open status entry code. But we won't go into this any further now because we will be covering this in more detail in separate how to register webinars. So if you're not sure on which code to use or you can't find it, then please do watch the webinar, or you can contact us or the help desk, and there are details on the screen there for them. So it's likely that you'll be at different stages with this. So this could be completely new to you, or maybe you've registered but not tackled the questions yet, or you might have previously published at entry level or approaching standards or even standards met. So you need to think about where you are now and take the appropriate next steps for you. And to help you in doing that, we will be scheduling a range of live sessions and workshops that you'll be able to sign up to from our website. So these are going to begin in June, and there will be sessions on how to register, sessions for each of the 4 topic areas within the toolkit, and sessions for those who were previously at entry level. There will also be recordings of these sessions made available online, so if you're unable to attend a session, or maybe you prefer to stop and start the session whilst you're working on the toolkit, then you'll be able to do that. And also from June, you can arrange one-to-one sessions with us if you'd like a bit more support, and there will also be peer support available from July as well. And there are some pre-recorded sessions already available now that you can access from the Digital Social Care website, and that includes sessions on how to register. So if you're keen to get started, then that's a really useful guide. And there are a lot of other resources to help with this as well. So the toolkit itself has a help section, and feedback from other providers that we've had is that the DSPT help desk is very helpful. So there's a link to contact them there as well. And also the Digital Social Care website, as we've mentioned, it really is an excellent source for anything DSPT. So if you're looking for advice or guidance or any templates, and they've also got the pre-recorded webinars we've mentioned. So those are the Start Here webinars. And as I said, they're available now if you feel you want to get going with this. Okay, so the important thing to remember is that it doesn't all need to be done at once, and you can work on the toolkit bit by bit and at your own pace, and so you can break it down into more manageable chunks as well. So here we've got some useful contacts. You've got the DSPT help desk contacts on the left, the Digital Social Care website in the middle for further information about data and cybersecurity in social care, and then also how to contact us as your local support in this. Okay, so next steps from here then, just as a recap, are to check if your organisation is registered, and you can do that by using the links earlier in the presentation. If not, find your right ODS code and register to start answering the toolkit questions. If you are already registered, then get your data security lead added as an administrator so they can then review the previous answers and check it's all up to date. Then you can sign up to some of our future workshops as needed to help you to register and complete the toolkit questions. So thank you very much for joining us today. We know data and cybersecurity can sound quite complicated, but there is a lot of support to help guide you through this. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you on some of our future sessions.